Things are already heating up, especially in the last 48 hours. There have been so many updates made that we are seeing Canada's economic problems, especially around employment scams, are going to continue to get worse. Not only that, the Liberals are lying about it and continuing to manipulate Canada, proving once again they cannot be trusted. And this will destroy Canadians' standard of living, and that problem will continue to grow unless it is addressed. And the mainstream media is right there helping them facilitate all of this lying because we know they are the mouthpiece of the government, and it's gotten so bad. They're running stories right now which are completely against the narrative they've been trying to tell us for the last 10 years, and they are getting so drunk on their power that we are seeing them go after people now because they hate being called out and they're trying to shut people down. Stick around to the end of this video. It's going to help bring all of the stories together, so let's get into it. I did want to start off with a piece of good news though, because I like this guy. Seems real salt of the earth. He's coming off like somebody who you want to be a politician. People forget politicians are supposed to represent their constituents. Here is somebody who obviously represents his constituents.
48 hours ago, I was still wondering where I was going to be today. So it's very exciting, and I'm proud to be a part of a party that won with 2.4 million more votes in the last election, 24 new seats, including myself and Carol Anstey from Newfoundland and Labrador. We come with the best showing in Newfoundland and Labrador for the Conservative Party in over 20 years. And that's because we have had a leader that has made policies for Newfoundland and Labrador's oil and gas, policies for Newfoundland and Labrador's mining industries, policies for Newfoundland's natural resources, which is one of the backbones to our economies. And that is the reason why I decided to join this Conservative Party at such a time as this. And I want to thank you guys for all the people a part of that. And we are very looking forward to bringing these policies with our next Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre, in the next election, hopefully in 2026.
So I actually find it kind of endearing that he made mistakes there because, again, we don't want somebody who's the perfect politician. We want somebody who's going to fight for Canada and understand what it's like living in these situations. Like even seeing the Speaker of the House get announced today, it just, these politicians are in a bizarro world. It's like they don't live in real Canada. And we'll get into some of the new Senate announcements and a bunch of other things. I also want to get into Pierre's statements kind of after this because it needs to be addressed in my personal opinion. But before we get into that, I wanted to show this also hilarious clip of Macron, the French president, getting off the plane. And then let's just see if anything happened while he's getting off the plane. Oh, man. That's so embarrassing. That's literally so embarrassing. They zoomed in. They show him get hit in the face. Like, these are the politicians who are supposed to represent the people. Like, we all know behind closed doors, they are just frauds. Look at this. You just saw what happened in real time. He gets hit in the face, turns at the camera, smiles, thumbs up. Like, these people are actors, man. Look at, and now they're just coming off like nothing happened. You just can't trust these people at all, honestly. And so we need to get into these job numbers and these statistics here. You guys might have seen some of these numbers, but I think it's really important to go over them again because when we show the rest of the clips that I have lined up here, it's all going to tell a story, and it's very, very important, okay? So this is from Table Salt on Twitter. Sometimes he's just putting out random posts of him just yelling into the ether, but sometimes he puts out good threads like this. So we have clearly seen that Canada has been replacing 10% of Canadian-born workers with low-wage replacements, mostly from India, and that's happened in just the last decade. I have been yelling about the employment scams and the temporary foreign worker fraud. I did a whole video on it. You guys probably saw it, maybe. And that was over a year ago. I put out my first video on that because the writing was obviously on the wall. You didn't have to be a super genius to walk into any sort of fast food, retail, gym, whatever it was. And somehow it's like, how am I entirely surrounded by Indians right now? And it just seemed to continue to compound. We can see in this Bank of Canada report, they've put out the actual statistics now. And you look at it and you say wage gap percent between Canadian-born workers and non-permanent residents by birth region. Southeast Asia, they are earning 30% less than natural born Canadians? And why do you think companies would be incentivized to hire people who are willing to work for 30% less? And on top of that, you know what, and I haven't been able to nail down a specific number for this yet, and I really want to do more digging into it, but we do know that there are government incentives in place to cover some of the wages of these immigrants as well. So you can see they're willing to work for less, and then these companies, these large corporations, are able to get subsidies. When they actually compare the PRs to the natural birth, you look at these staggering statistics. So red is the migratory change, aka immigration in the population. It's the growth rate. And then we have the natural change in blue. So when you see this, and you know that in Canada, we have a cost of living problem. We have an employment problem, especially in the youth employment, which includes those under 25, which people forget. People always think youth means like under 18. But when it comes to employment statistics, that actually includes those under 25. Now imagine you have a generation of people, 25 years and younger, who can't get jobs as cost of living continues to go up. Do you see where there's obviously going to be an economic problem? Do you see where it's obviously going to disincentivize the natural Canadians from having kids? Because that's the other problem. They always talk, Canadians aren't having kids, Canadians aren't having kids. If the cost of living crisis gets worse, there's less jobs, there's less places for people to live, they are going to be more hesitant around having kids. Did you like the video yet? Helps get this video in front of more people, helps the channel grow. Don't forget to sign up for Wealthsimple. Link is down below. You get $25, I get $25. Let's get back to it. So this is immigration's contributions to the annual population growth. Non-permanent residents are in red. Non-permanent residents, that's people who should not be here, and they're only benefiting large corporations. That's the only people. And also, the Liberal government for the last 10 years was able to use these people to extract wealth from them and pretend like it was having an actual impact on GDP. We know they always spoke about GDP continues to grow. We're up year over year. All of these numbers are up. But the productivity was down. We have been in a GDP per capita recession for years. It feels like at this point, they're trying to do a managed decline of Canada and say, look, Canada's done. All we can do is pump in immigrants and hopefully fix all the numbers. But what it does is makes everything worse, because we're just talking straight numbers here. We're not even talking social cohesion. And I think people realize that there is a lot of immigration, but sometimes you need to visually see a representation of how big the jump has been. So in this chart here, you have the green is 2006 to 2014. Blue is 2015 to 2019, which again, you already can see a spike from 2015 to 2019. And then 2023 and 2024 are so much higher that you can barely even compare the numbers. These are in thousands, okay? So the temporary foreign workers program, 182,000 versus 82,000 in 2015 to 2019. The IMP program, which stands for the International Mobility Program, and yes, India does qualify for that if they're able to get job offers as well. Study permits is the staggering one. We have more videos about the study permits. And asylum seekers, for me, is one of the most frustrating, because you can see that number in 2006 to 2014 was 24,000 a year. I would have to assume that a lot of those were real asylum seekers who actually need access to safety. 24,000 is also a number that can be absorbed by Canada. 159,000 is not a number that can be easily absorbed, especially because those people get less scrutiny when they're coming over. And when we dive into the distribution of non-permanent resident workers across industries by percentage, the red line is the recent immigrants. And of course, accommodation and food, it's up. Retail trade, it's up. The non-permanent residents getting into construction has actually gone down. Whenever they talk about this employee shortages and with these labor shortages in construction, so we need to bring in more immigrants, we can see direct data here. They're not getting into construction. We all know they're clearly just being used for cheap labor by large corporations. And again, we're just getting into data because people are going to be like, well, you can't just call them out. Well, we actually kind of can, because a share of non-permanent resident workers by birth region and percentage, we can see India is a staggering increase, and everybody knows they're all coming from India. India right now is being used as a cheap labor force to supplement Canada's lack of productivity. It is not socially cohesive to immigrate an entire nation of people, because we're talking millions, because the amount of Indians that have come over in the last 10 years is larger than a lot of countries have in total population. And of course, we can't just blame the immigrants themselves. They know they're getting through on these scam visas and they understand, but these pipelines are preying on people back in India. They are using the opportunity back in India to get these people to beg, borrow, and steal, to come up with the money to buy fake permits here, and then they come over and then there's no reason for them to be here, and then they end up in a worse position, undercutting jobs and employment. This is a clear institutional problem that is coming from the top down. It is a liberal manufactured crisis. All of this was avoidable, and the media was clearly complicit. We're going to get into some videos now showing that these stories have actively, constantly pushed for this to happen, and there are so many people to blame. Let's check these out.
Canadian universities are being asked to tighten up their finances as they struggle with plummeting enrollments from international students who pay higher tuition.
We have a tendency to think that international students are taking spaces from Canadians, and in fact, it's exactly the opposite. International students come to
Can't wait to see this logic.
our universities, and they pay more in tuition than our own students. So what that does is it creates more spaces for Canadians to go and have opportunity. And this is one of the biggest challenges we're facing in the country now, because over the next 10 years, we're going to have more Canadians of university age knocking on the doors of these institutions. And right now, there's no sustainable plan for universities to be able to provide them with the education they need and they deserve.
Good.
Universities Canada says inadequate provincial operating grants are also a factor on ongoing budget challenges for post-secondary institutions. Late last year, Ottawa announced a 10% reduction in international students. Earlier this month, NAIT in Edmonton recently announced it's pausing 18 programs, mainly due to shrinking international enrollment.
If your programs are only profitable because you have to charge international students extra fees, and they're only sustainable if the government is paying you money directly in credit, those programs should not exist. The university and academia industry in Canada has fallen off the rails. We've seen it's a giant indoctrination tunnel that people just get pumped through, and there is no reason at this point, unless you have a career-specific role, to actually need to go to university, especially now that finance and tech and software, all of these other industries, which you might have needed a university degree for before, are not going to be hiring. They're contracting. These people are graduating into a job market which doesn't even actually need them or those skills. And that's not to talk about underwater basket weaving and all of the other nonsense programs. University bloat has been a problem for decades. The amount of useless programs that should be cut immediately is staggering. It should be left to STEM fields where university is required. And then when government money goes there, people who need it and roles that would be productive and necessary to our society, not to all of this other nonsense. It's not economically productive to have somebody go into tens of thousands of student debt to get some random humanities degree and then just work in some random job. That doesn't help anyone. It's not industry specific, and then they have to be funded and subsidized through international students. And then what happens when you end up with too many international students is we end up with problems like this. And these people ticked me off so much.
International students studying in college across Montreal.
But unlike university students at McGill and Concordia,
We are still forced to pass French exam to graduate to get a PG degree. Why are college students treated differently?
we all came here to learn, we all contribute to Quebec, we all deserve the same chance.
University students fought and won.
Now it's our turn, our college must stand with us.
So clearly, 100% of those people are Indian. And what are they protesting about is international students in Montreal are protesting because they have to pass a French exam to get a postgraduate work permit. Huh. You came to a country where they've required you to learn the language. These people barely speak English, honestly. I had to watch it a few times, and they have the subtitles for me to really understand. I was like, are they speaking English? And that's not even me being like, oh, you gotta speak English or get out. That's me saying, I actually could not understand you without subtitles, and now you're complaining that you can't do and the funny thing is too, they say in this, we came here to study. Yeah, study and leave. Just because you studied in Canada does not mean you are entitled to stay and work in Canada unless you jump through every single possible hoop that proves that you are qualified and necessary to stay in Canada. So the fact that they're going, well, we don't want to learn French. You don't even know English. I don't know how you could have graduated these programs without these things. And the fact, you know what's the worst part about this entire situation is these people are making me defend French. The French. I have to defend Quebec and the French. You guys have put me in such an annoying position. I'm so mad. And again, what does this lead to? It leads to announcements like this. The Senate of Canada was proud to welcome Senator Baltej Singh Dillon. Okay, look at all this celebration we have for our boy Baltej. Oh, he's walking in. Is he wearing a suit? No, he's not. He is wearing foreign garb inside of a Canadian political institution. Everybody's clapping. They're so happy. Let's get a close-up of this gentleman here while he's getting sworn in.
Mary May Simon, Canada. Charles III, by the grace of God, King of Canada and his other realms and territories, head of the Commonwealth. 2. Our trusty and well-beloved Baltej Singh Dillon, of the city of Surrey in the province of British Columbia.
Boy.
Greeting.
Okay, so we don't need to watch his entire swearing-in ceremony, but do you guys know that Sikhs in Canada are way overrepresented in government by a staggering amount? By like hundreds of %, they are overrepresented. And it doesn't make sense how there are so many Sikhs in Canadian government. I cannot figure out how Canadians continue to vote for this. And this is a Senate seat, which means he was selected. And we've even seen problems with the Conservative Party when they kicked out Michael de Jong for a Sikh candidate in his riding during that time. I don't know if you guys saw that story. It didn't get a lot of coverage from people, but we saw them kick out a Canadian for a Sikh guy. And almost all of the Sikhs have Khalistani ties, and Khalistan is a problem that we do not want in Canada. And if the liberal mouthpieces weren't bad enough, watch these conflicting videos back to back. In this very video, they conflict their last 10 years of messaging. Let's get into it.
When King Charles stopped at Canada House in London on Tuesday, he was shown a large floor map of the country, a prelude to a visit that will demonstrate Canada's historic ties to the British monarchy, and more importantly, will symbolize this country's distinct sovereignty in North America.
This is an historic honor which matches the weight of our times.
So just to be clear, this media outlet has titled this video King Charles' Throne Speech, a strong symbol of Canadian sovereignty. So a foreign nation's king, because of course, Canada is not a European colony. We don't have a history of that. They've been telling us that for the last 10 years. But a king from another nation, who we just watched, the Senate had to swear into him, coming in to talk to Canadians about how we are still one of his vassal states, is somehow a symbol of sovereignty in Canada. So a foreign leader coming and addressing our government saying, don't worry, guys, I know you're loyal to me, is a sovereign stance for Canada. And it's so funny to watch them rewrite all of this history, because for the last decade, the Liberal government has said we have not historically been a European nation. Canada does not have a history of being a European nation. We have just been a nation of immigrants with no national identity. In 2015, Justin Trudeau said Canada is the first post-national state with no national identity. That's a quote from Justin Trudeau. So when you see clips like this, again, Table Salt, he had shared it in his thread when we were talking about immigration before. He shared this clip of then Immigration Minister Sean Fraser basically conflicting with what they just said about us being a European nation, but we are a sovereign European nation under the King of the United Kingdom. So let's see what he says about, Canada's immigration and the history of Canada here.
It's simple to me. Canada needs more people. Canadians understand the need to continue to grow our population if we're going to meet the needs of the labor force, if we're going to rebalance a worrying demographic trend, and if we're going to continue to reunite families and to do right by the world and make good on our commitments to support some of the world's most vulnerable. My view is that Canada is uniquely positioned in the world to use immigration to achieve these outcomes. You know, immigration in Canada is not just something that we do, it's who we are. It's who we've always been.
Listen to that. It's hilarious. It's who we've always been. Yeah, but you guys won't admit that who we've always been is a European nation with European history. And that's how Canada was settled. That's how Canada was built. And that's why we're bringing in the king to address our parliament, because that's our history. Instead, they want us to believe that it's been a complete post-national state this entire time that just has a history of immigration. That's not the case. I've broken it down in other videos. The mass immigration trend really didn't start until after the 2000s. Of course, there were immigrants before then, but not at the levels we are seeing now. And so when you see these people rewriting history and trying to get their agenda through of needing more immigration and talking about, oh, we need to grow the population, they never, ever, 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 I've not once heard a liberal politician say, we need to find a way to encourage Canadians to have kids. I've not once. I'm not saying they haven't, but I personally have never seen any of them say that. 100% of the time, they always suggest immigration first, and they're such weasels with their words, like we just saw there. So when you see him trying to answer his question about the carbon tax, we can see they can't believe anything. And all of this language, all of these videos will be important when we see the last video that I'm going to show you.
Tax cut for Canadians.
Do you plan to introduce legislation to repeal the consumer carbon tax?
Look, that will have to be done eventually. We want to remove, the carbon tax has been removed. It's at zero.
Well, it's been zeroed. It's not the same thing.
So, it's a latent piece of legislation. I don't know if you've seen the statutes of Canada. There are a lot of laws on the books that either aren't applied anymore or are simply ignored, maybe even forgotten. But the carbon tax is absolutely gone, and we'll make sure that that's made very clear to Canadians in due course.
Well, the reason why I ask about that is because, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, the criticism raised by the Conservatives when it was, zeroed, was that essentially leaving the possibility open for a time when we are not in a crisis, or when your government doesn't feel it is as unpopular as the new Prime Minister has deemed it to be, because you and your colleagues spent years, almost 6 years in fact, saying it was a very vital policy instrument. So there is no chance, you're saying, of that consumer carbon tax ever being resurrected under a Mark Carney government?
So Vassy sometimes pretends to be a journalist, and that question was almost good. If she wanted to ask a real question, she would have said, you've zeroed out temporarily the consumer carbon tax, which she did call it at the beginning. However, industrial carbon pricing and taxes still exist and are scheduled to increase. She didn't dig into that, and she didn't ask that. And the reason is they are told, don't push back too much, because we have idiots like this who can't answer questions when they're actually pushed. This is one of the people who for the last 6 years has been talking about how the carbon tax is so important to Canada, but they were willing to zero it out right away. Meanwhile, they have kept the industrial carbon pricing. It's all doublespeak. They're just trying to trick you.
Let me be very clear. Mark Carney has been very clear. There is absolutely no intention to go back to a consumer carbon tax.
And when you say
consumer carbon tax, very specific.
Say that in due course, you mean at one point you do plan to repeal that legislation?
Well, we will absolutely be making it very clear to Canadians that there is no plan to return to a carbon tax. None. Zero.
But what?
Again, she asked, so you'll make plans to repeal the bill? Well, we'll be making it very clear there's no plans to return to the carbon tax. All of the language they use is floating, non-committal language, because again, if either of these two bozos had half a brain, they would be talking about the industrial carbon tax, which currently exists. And the problems in Canada have gotten so bad that even watching this speech, I wanted to show you because we have to talk about it.
In one word, hope. When we expose liberal failures, when we argue about policies, we don't do it just to hold the government to account. We do it because we want things to get better. When we act as a government in waiting, we do it to provide the hope that things can and will get better in a future conservative government. We will present ourselves as a government in waiting to ensure that people know that that hope remains. The hope that our youth will one day be able to move out of their parents' homes and into their own, start a family in that new home with happy problems, like having to get out of the car when you get home from work to remove the hockey net so you can get the car into the garage. Knowing that kids were playing safely there after they got home from school, and that they will be in the House of Commons procrastinating about their homework. The families that need hope, that their fridge can be full without...
Do you guys get the message they're going for? He clearly is doing a New Hope positive angle. Pierre, in my opinion, I've always been hesitant about him. And if you've watched my videos, I've been very vocal to say he's not against mass immigration, and it took him forever. He wasn't against the vaccine mandates. There was a ton of things that I always said I was skeptical about Pierre. I think he is not necessarily the leader Canada needs. We actually need a stronger leader than Pierre right now. For this to be his comeback speech of like, look how cute of a nice guy I am. It's like, that's not what Canada needs right now. We need somebody to actually hold the Liberals accountable. And one of those things is he's going to have to go after immigration, which is not politically popular in Canada. And I don't think Pierre's personally ready to go through any of this stuff. 100% okay if you guys disagree with me not liking Pierre. That yes, I'm not putting my trust in Pierre. I don't think he's the leader Canada needs. But if you think he is, that's okay. I want to be a channel where discourse is fine and disagreement is okay. And here's why it's so important that we keep the dialogue open. We get into this mainstream news story here, and we can actively see the media is going to be pushing for more censorship in Canada.
Democrats keep getting humiliated on national television.
Do you think a trans woman is a woman?
No. You've probably seen videos like this in your feeds before. They're confrontational and partisan.
If it hadn't have been for the Democrats and the Biden administration.
This is one of the most popular Canada-based news accounts on YouTube. But it's not really news, it's more like what people call a content farm. We'll break down the formula that makes it so popular and try to find out who's behind this channel. Why would someone start a channel like this? Like, what's it for?
You know, it's for making money.
It's funny that they use that as like, it's for making money. Oh yeah, surely the mainstream media doesn't care about making money. Well, actually, they might not care about making money because they get unlimited money from the government. So maybe they don't.
If you dig into this channel, you can see it has a clear formula. Here's the strategy. Take a clip of a confrontation between a conservative figure and a liberal. Focus on the moment where they humiliate, destroy, or humble that liberal. Add what seems to be an AI voiceover framing the confrontation.
This BLM activist is literally left speechless.
And keep it to a minute or so. This isn't original content. The videos are ripped from Senate hearings, university lectures, or TV shows. It's all part of a bigger trend.
The content farm can take many different forms, but these channels in particular do seem to be using the political content in particular and what they feel is going to drive the engagement.
And that's
yeah, mainstream media doesn't use political news to drive their content. Have you guys heard about CNN or Fox or CBC or any of the other major mainstream news? They certainly don't lean on politics at all.
Exactly the kind of sweet spot this creator has unlocked. We've looked into this channel before. They used to post cheap fakes about Canadian politics, but it's almost all American now. The Canadian ones they still post aren't as popular. We also noticed a change in where this person is posting. Most of the content is uploaded to YouTube, and that makes sense if the person is in Canada. You can't make money off TikTok views here, but a YouTube channel that can get millions of views, that could generate serious cash. This channel has changed quite a bit.
That was a bit of misrepresentation. That would be an insane earning YouTube channel.
It used to focus on finance content. Clearly, they're searching for what will boost views and revenue. And for now, they've decided that's not Canadian news. The American politics focus is working. Real Talk Politics is one of the most viewed Canada-based political content channels. And it's not just this account using this strategy.
Now, surprisingly, I've never heard of that YouTube channel, so I'm actually not going to defend their content specifically because I didn't watch it. I don't know anything about it. They were clearly most upset that it was a lot of right-leaning politicians or politics that was showing left-wing looking bad. And they want to control the narrative. They want to be the partisan voice because they try to say, oh, we don't have bias. And I actually think what the mainstream media does is 10 times worse than what this channel does. Because if this channel says, look, we're an Own the Libs channel, we are a right-wing channel that you can get conservative clips from, no problem. You now understand what they are and what they do. but the mainstream media says they're unbiased. You have to trust and believe us. And then they have clear propaganda and controlled messaging. So they say we're unbiased, trust us, but that person who's openly conservative, don't trust them. Oh, you need better media literacy. That's what they go on to say in the video. Oh, this is going to lead to a discussion on media literacy. They're going to go for the low-hanging fruit first, and then they're going to want to control the messaging even further, which could include people like yours truly. So make sure you're out there supporting channels, not necessarily just me, anybody else who you watch too. But if you made it this far in the video, you absolutely rock. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps get these videos out in front of more people. Don't forget to sign up for Wealth Simple. Link is down below. You get $25. I get $25. A way to support the channel where you also win. We take on the big banks, and have a great rest of your day.